A very good afternoon to you. On the business desk at this hour, Sasria's balance sheet continues to recover from the impact of claims made following the 2021 July unrest. The state insurer has been building up reserves since the devastating events that occurred across the country 3 years ago. Over 30 billion rand was paid by Sasria for damages incurred to a wide range of businesses. CEO Mpumi Tyikwe joins us now in studio to look back and give an update of the current position. A very good afternoon to you. It must be comforting to be talking 3 years later. Where are you sitting in terms of your balance sheet and your books after those events?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers as well. Look, we are sitting relatively, compared to July 2021, we are in a better position. But is it enough? We do not know. But what we do know is that in July 2021, we paid 30 billion rands of claims. So, which means that we anticipate that the next event might be bigger than that one. So we have to build the reserves to that amount. Now we get a combination of two reserves. Basically, it's the cash we have in the bank and reinsurance capacity that we have to buy. So as I'm talking to you today, we are sitting at about 22 billion rands. If I look at what I have with reinsurance and the cash that I have in the bank.
And as you rightfully stated, I mean, that position can never be too comfortable in terms of the reserves that you have. Lessons learned from the July unrest of 2021 to where we find ourselves post a COVID-19 era and economic uncertainty really going into the global dynamics of how the world is trajecting.
Yes. Look, and things that are unique to South Africa. I mean, we continue with high unemployment, stagnant economic growth. So there's a lot of uncertainty. We've just had, we had good elections. And even though there were surprises with those elections as well insofar as the voter turnout, but generally they were peaceful and so on. Most of our international backers were concerned as to how South Africa is going to handle the elections. So going forward, there are those uncertainties that we have to deal with, the infrastructure challenges that we continue to have. I mean, we've moved from talking about load shedding, and now we're talking about load reduction, which is affecting a lot of communities in South Africa. So that all these variables that as Sasria we have to deal with and say, what do they mean insofar as our financial sustainability?
The makeup of Sasria as a state insurer, how much of that has then had to be continuously tweaked? Because the matters that you are raising are quite vast in the nature of how one would deal with them, from a business that is affected by civil unrest to maybe the impact of load shedding or even load reduction on one's refrigerator as a small business. How has that maybe altered the manner in which Sasria is made up?
Look, it hasn't really changed Sasria much, except that we have to deal with more. So remember, we insure 4 perils, or we call them special risks. If people protest for political reasons, for non-political reasons, labor unrest, and a terrorism act, the issue for us is whether these events that I've just mentioned will lead to a protest that will then cause damage. And then as Sasria, we have to pay for those damages. It's a relatively very difficult thing to model or predict as to when it's going to happen and what is going to be its magnitude. So we must always be continuously analyzing what's happening in the environment and trying to assess as to what its impact will be on us and South Africa at large.
It's for that reason that I actually find it interesting. At the beginning of our conversation, you indicated that building cash reserves for an eventuality of some sort based on the lessons learned from the July 2021 unrest. What type of eventuality are you maybe looking at in terms of analytics and having that eye that seeks to measure the temperament in South Africa?
Look, I think you need to go back to what has just happened, for instance, in Kenya. So you are saying, I think they are referred to as Generation Z. So the Kenyan government wanted to pass a new tax bill, and the youth came into the streets and protested. Amongst that, they caused damage to business, and they bent the parliament. So that gives you indication as to how fragile things can change rapidly. So Kenya had elections 2 years ago. We've just had our own elections. So as Sasria, we look at the promises that have been made to South Africans during the election period, And whether those elections will materialize in year 2, year 3, year 4, if they do not, and in particular unemployment, then we know that the likelihood of something going wrong is much more higher. And we need to make sure that we've got the cash to deal with it when it happens. So that's the first part. I think the second part, though, as Sasria, what we need to focus on, and this is where we are turning into, is to say, how do we facilitate discussions to enable the South African economy to grow so that we don't have to deal with that problem into the future. So more about risk mitigation and risk management. As they say, prevention is better than actually dealing with the exact situation when it materializes. So we're going to be spending a lot of time with various partners, collaborating with various institutions to say, how does South Africa sort out its unemployment problem, and in particular, youth unemployment?
As a parting shot, all claimants have now been paid out and all matters are resolved as of the July unrest of 2021.
Yes, they have been all paid, and we've had for the last 3 years, we must thank South Africans. I mean, Sasria has had loss ratios below 15%, which is phenomenal, which means it gives us time for us to build our reserves.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
That is Mpumi Tyikwe, the CEO of Sasria, the state insurer, looking back at the July 2021 unrest, but also looking forward to what more they can be in terms of a body that that insures those in South Africa that are in the climate of an economic participation level.